Can you start the broadcast? Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Independent Publishers of New England's weekly broadcast, Ask the Experts. This week and last week, we have a few extra sessions of the experts broadcasts due to the fact that we have our conference coming up. So in about a week, we have 3 events that will be with the Boston Book Festival in Copley Square. That's on October 14th. And that should be a very exciting event. We have a panel there on different models of independent publishing as they occur, particularly here in New England, but all over the United States. Then on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we'll be in Danvers with the New England Librarian Association. And if you have any interest whatsoever in libraries, it is a fascinating event to learn what is up and coming in the library world. And following that, we have our annual conference in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And that will be the, I forget the date, 21st and 22nd, I think, of October. And today we have with us one of our keynote speakers who we're very excited to both be interviewing today and to have with us at the conference, TimBrooks. And TimBrooks will be speaking together with Myung Yu, who may be joining us today if he has time. Myung is currently working on a PhD at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And so the two of them are collaborating on just a fascinating project if you're at all interested in linguistics education or anything associated with human rights. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce Tim Brooks. Thanks, Tim, for joining us.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, so Tim, let's see, you obviously have this lovely accent, which you brought with you, and I love your bio. Tim, in his bio, if you have a chance to read it, you learn that he ate at school liver and onions. Now, did you have a choice on that, or was that the...
No, you have to realize that, especially back then, the British thought that the whole notion of choice was something that would make you soft. And it was actually much better that you never have a choice for anything, and that you learn how to make the best or make do with whatever it is that life hands you, even if it's liver and onions.
Oh my heavens, I didn't know that. I thought that was American. Okay, so Tim, let's see. You started the Champlain College Publishing Initiative. Is that 9 years ago now that you've been?
A bit less. It was 2009.
2009, okay. And you've been at Champlain College for quite some time as well.
Yep,
what was it that, what was the idea behind, why did you start the Champlain College Initiative? What was the idea with that?
It was an interesting kind of coming together, a confluence of different forces, all of which said, this is what you should be doing. We were having a meeting of the sort of professional advisory board for the division I teach in. And this was professionals from the communication field all over the place. And one of them turned to me and said, listen, you know, the only way that you're ever going to keep up with these increasingly rapid changes in the communication industry is by being part of them. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. And even, especially if you see yourself as, you know, somebody who is studying or observing what's going on, you're really going to be 5-10 years behind already. And the only way to keep up is by actually taking part. And he said, you should start a publishing company. And then about 2 weeks later, I was meeting with a friend of mine who's an international magazine consultant. And he said, he was really looking into the whole print-on-demand revolution, which was really taking off at that point. And he said, you know what, you and I should start a publishing company. And so just literally one student and I looked into this and came up with 4 specimen books, which we created and published in about 4 months, sort of as a proof of concept. And we then subsequently used some of them in class, and some of them were student projects, which they then essentially self-published and sold. And so the whole thing really took off very, very fast. And then within 3 or 4 years, we had probably 35 students working on the publishing initiative. Some were doing videos, some were doing interactive digital stuff, some were doing editing, copy editing, some were doing like graphic design, poster creation, promotion, publicity, marketing. We really had an extraordinary thing that was just racing along. And sort of concurrently with that, I had started my Endangered Alphabets project. And that was the first exhibition of my carvings of endangered writing systems was in 2010. My students on the publishing initiative designed the first edition of my book, Endangered Alphabets. And Mong, my friend Mong New, who is going to be co-speaking with me at the conference, saw my work, which included some of the languages from his native region, the Chittagong Hill Tracts of Bangladesh. And he got in touch with me and said, I would love to meet you. And he and I got together, and then we've been working together ever since. And the students in the publishing class and the publishing initiative at Champlain have also been working with us and with him to create these classroom materials for the children in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, which we're going to be talking about.
Right, fantastic! What a brilliant project. And so, how many languages are there that are in danger of disappearing? And what sort of work are you doing in terms of, you and Mongyu, in terms of preserving the endangered language? And I know that when I first started in linguistics, the idea that there were languages in danger was just shocking to me. I had no idea. So, so how many languages are there out there, and how many?
So I'd like to distinguish between endangered languages and endangered writing systems. So there are maybe 6,000 plus languages in the world. And the general estimate or prediction is that about half of them will be extinct by the end of this century. Because as you have increased travel and communication, as you have globalization, and especially as you have the emerging domination of a small number of languages that are used by more and more people, then essentially you don't get new speakers of many of these languages. And so therefore you have an aging population of native speakers. And as they die, the language dies. Now, endangered alphabets, which is what I do, is somewhat different, although it overlaps. So, for example, if you go on Facebook, then there are a certain number of writing systems that when you type, for example, on your own English language keyboard, it turns up nicely on Facebook and you see it. If you type in, say, Amazigh, which is the Berber language, and their writing system, which is called Tifinagh, then what you get are what are called tofu squares, those little kind of square characters that say, basically, I have no idea what it is you're trying to say.
Right.
And so I discovered very much by accident that there are only 100, 130 writing systems in the world, alphabets, if you will. And about a third of them are no longer taught in schools, no longer used for official purposes, which means that if that drift continues, they will become extinct. The only people who can still read and write them will be either increasingly elderly or they'll be scholars. So I started carving pieces of text in these wonderfully interesting, strange, bizarre, curious writing systems. I'm going to show you one in a minute. And I thought this was sort of just a hobby. But instead, people started saying, no, no, no. First of all, this is really important, what you're doing. And secondly, this is art. So let me show you an example. Right here is one that I'm working on. So I'm going to hold it up, and then I'm going to hold up the carving that I'm doing that goes along with it. So the project, the exhibition that I'm carving at the moment involves the phrase mother tongue in 20 different endangered writing systems.
Brilliant.
And
brilliant.
This is for International Mother Language Day in February. So in Assyrian, it looks like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. That is gorgeous.
And people say, you know, do you speak all these languages? And I say, no. Luckily, I've made contacts in the academic world or in the world of cultural preservation, or even among native speakers and writers who can actually send me these texts. So I'm going to go and get a piece of wood now. I'll be right back.
Okay, great, thanks. And while TimBrooks is going and getting a piece of wood, which he has just gotten, a gorgeous piece of wood. Oh my Lord, did you find that in the Vermont forest somewhere?
No, no, no. This is, I got this in Maine, actually. This is olive. And so what I'm doing is I'm carving that phrase in the wood. I'm going to hold it up at slightly different angles.
Oh, I see. Wow, fantastic.
And so this, I'm using olive partly because it's so incredibly beautiful, but also partly because this is one of the woods that is native to the region where people are still using the Syriac writing system or alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this exhibition is going to consist of many oddly shaped, gnarly pieces of wood with little bits of writing in them. And my aim is that this should kind of dramatically present not only all these pieces of writing, but also the relationship between writing and wood, the historical relationship. And the fact that the pieces of wood are all kind of cracked and knotty, I'm hoping is going to convey the sense that, you know, all of these writing systems are endangered.
Right. Wow, what a fantastic project. Now, I would imagine that this will be digitally available. But where are you setting it up physically? Or is there going to be?
We're in discussions with two museums. Mm-hmm. And also a college. So it's probably going to be displayed several different places. One is in Pennsylvania, one is outside DC, one is in LA. So we're going to have those discussions, and it's probably going to go on tour.
Great. And what's the date for that? I'm putting that in my calendar for Mother Language Day.
International Mother Language Day is February the 21st.
Okay, that's going down.
Okay.
Okay, getting back to publishing, at the Champlain College Publishing Initiative, what sort of things, you mentioned all of the different platforms and medias that you use, great variety, and the internet has really changed things. But what sort of other things are you publishing the most, and how do you decide what to publish, or do the students take the initiative on that, or how does that work?
In the past year, partly because I took a sabbatical, excuse me, and partly because I've taken on other projects, the person who's running the publishing initiative as managing editor is Kim McQueen. And so she is working on a number of projects. She's doing a book project for Champlain College. She's doing a digital magazine. And she's working with a team of students on all of those. And so the students are doing most of the writing, editing, designing, etc. In the past, if we can move on to the stuff that Mong and I have worked on.
Yes, yes.
So Mong's background is that he comes from Bangladesh, and in particular, he comes from an area in Bangladesh that is sort of an upland, forested area. And it is home to 13 different indigenous peoples, groups who are genetically distinct, who have their own languages. And the problem is that because they speak their own languages, some of which have their own alphabets, there are no school books for them in those languages and in those writing systems, or any kind of educational materials. And when you don't have an education system that's supported in that fashion, the education tends to be a disaster. And so the number of children who actually complete their education is catastrophically low. And he and community members started initially 1 and now 3 schools where these children can be educated in their own languages. You know, the whole mother tongue initiative is very much part of this. They can speak their mother tongue, they can learn in their mother tongue. But there were no materials to use in the classroom. And so a number of teams of my students, they ran Kickstarter campaigns to raise money. We have created rubber alphabet stamps. So, you know, the kids can sort of stamp out the individual letters to make words. We've done coloring books. So that there are no art classes in the area, anywhere in Bangladesh, I believe. They certainly didn't have anything that was culturally suitable. And so we had a wonderful student designer take a number of photographs from the region, convert them into outlines, and so the students could color them in. And therefore we had to send them, you know, colored pencils and stuff because they didn't have those either. We created alphabet wall charts so that you could put their letters up on the walls. They didn't have those. And Mong is doing this incredible project, which he'll be talking about at the conference, where he has the kids from the schools go to their native village and speak to either their grandparents or village elders and ask them to say, tell me a story that you heard when you were my age, or tell me a story about what life in the village was like, you know, when you were my age. And so their elders tell them these stories, and they come back to the school, and then they're videotaped telling these stories to the class, which in itself is a radical act, because in many areas of the world, education is very, very dictatorial. The children aren't even supposed to look at the teacher, they're supposed to look down, you know. So to have them in front of the classroom is a radical act. So then Mong takes these videotapes and gets the stories transcribed and then written out and illustrated and published. So the kids, for their classroom readers, are reading about their own culture, their own history, their own lives, their own folk tales. And this is a wonderfully circular thing, because they can then take those back to the village, and the villagers who also don't have written materials in their own writing system or their own language can see them. So it's an amazing project. It's an amazing publishing project, because it really changes the definition of publishing and the purpose of publishing. You know, who are you publishing for? And the notion that you publish solely, you know, to have a bestseller, or you publish to aggrandize the author or the publisher, you know, all of that is changed around, and now it's really publication for cultural survival. And of course, the process of publishing has involved storytelling, videotaping, writing, illustration, and this wonderfully kind of circular process.
Wow, fantastic. That is the whole audience issue has just changed so radically in so many ways. And to me, it seems largely because of access to the internet. But I mean, one of the really interesting things about this project to me is that you're working with a group of people who don't really have access to the internet. In fact, they don't even have, I think I read that Mong said there's one television in the village and it's battery run. So it's interesting to publish to publish the project with the objective of cultural survival. Okay, any other comments that you'd like to add about the panel or about the work that you and Mangyo are doing together?
So I'm also going to be talking about, excuse me, seeing as you were talking about the internet, I'm going to be talking about the role that social media have played in the last 9 months in the development of the endangered alphabets, because there's a tradition among publishers, especially among book publishers, of seeing the internet as being antipathetic. You know, the books and the internet are sort of fighting this battle, and for some people, the only extent of their digital involvement is to say, well, should I have an ebook edition of the book that I am publishing? Mm-hmm. And what has been happening with the endangered alphabets is that every dimension of what I do has changed in the last 9 months. And it really comes from my finally embracing the relationship between the global process of the internet and this very local thing that I do where I'm, you know, making marks in wood with a sharp gouge. And so I'm hoping that when I talk to the conference, this will help people get ideas about how they can sort of diversify their relationship with their readers and also diversify and enrich their definition of the word publishing. So that's something that I'm very much looking forward to talking about. And as I say, it really has revolutionized and developed everything I'm doing with the alphabets just in the last 9 months.
Wow, it's incredible how rapidly things change. And I'm getting an echo now, so I'm going to close. Okay, we have just a couple more minutes here, and I'd like to thank you, TimBrooks, for joining us. And I really look forward to your keynote, which is again going to be in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on Saturday the 22nd. It will be the keynote session after lunch, and you'll be speaking with Mangyo about the Endangered Alphabets Project and publishing, and that's something that we're really looking forward to. Charlotte, any last minute?
Okay. Hi, Tim. Welcome and thank you so much. After hearing you in, I think it was 2013, right?
I think so.
Yeah. You know, I knew that you guys would be perfect, and I just love the cutting edge, you know, mind expanding aspect of what you're doing. So it's awesome.
It's really strange because on the one end, we are dealing with the most traditional forms of disseminating information, namely storytelling, traditional storytelling in villages. And at the other end, that's the project called Our Golden Hour, by the way. This is Mong's project. And at the other end, we have the fact that crucial to the success of all of this is Facebook. It's absolutely fascinating, and I think it's crucial that people understand that we all, as publishers, are working in a continuum along there, rather than talking in terms of old versus new.
And I know we have another panel after your keynote, which is called it's called the Touching Home in China project, which is all online. Melissa Ledke is a producer, and she's working with a filmmaker, Julie Malazzi, who's fairly well known. But I think you'll enjoy talking with them because it's a similar cultural aspect. They took Melissa has adopted a girl from China, and so they have a community of fellow adoptive families who went back to China to the villages that the girls actually came from. And it's just like, it raises goosebumps. Just
wonderful.
So cool.
I look forward to that.
So I hope you get a chance to talk to them, and, you know, I think some good collaboration could come out of that. Maybe. Probably don't need any more projects, but okay. So that's about all I've got. I've been behind the scenes here. I hope I got some of your websites up, and
Okay, I just wanted to put up the On Golden Hour.
Yeah, I
website.
had that up for a while.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well then, thanks, Tim, so much for giving us your time and for all of the work that you're doing in independent publishing and in preserving endangered alphabets and all of the.
Thanks so much for inviting me, and I look forward to the conference.
Okay. So do we. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Take care.
Going
Bye.
offline. See you all next week.
Okay. Bye.